podcast where people reach their goals and develop confidence one mind shift habit at a time. Let's join our host, certified coach Christina.
Hello, welcome to Conversations with Coach. I am your host, certified mindset and confidence coach, Christina Calloway. I help athletes, parents, and coaches develop the confidence they need to achieve their goals both on and off the field. I will go ahead and share with you this episode of Conversations with Coach. It's going to be different. Some of you may find this topic that we're going to be talking about a little bit uncomfortable, maybe even a little bit disturbing. It's definitely going to be heavy, a little bit weighted. However, I believe we experience growth when we get uncomfortable. I am blessed and honored to be able to use my platform to shed light on such a dark subject, the goal of which is to increase awareness and empower those who have either suffered from direct experience or know someone who is currently suffering from this trauma, and to provide information and resources. This conversation is focusing on child sexual abuse. And again, just to remind you, if you've got young children who are in the room who might be disturbed by the conversation, you may want to have them leave until you can explain it to them a little bit more in detail. I want to share some statistics with you. According to the National Center for Victims of Crime, the prevalence of child sexual abuse is difficult to determine because it is not often reported. Experts agree that the incidence is far greater than what is reported to authorities. Child sexual abuse is also not uniformly defined, so the statistics may vary. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Children's Bureau report child maltreatment in 2010 found that 9.2% of victimized children were sexually assaulted. There was a study done by David Finkelhor, who is the director of Crimes Against Children Research Center, and the studies, some of the statistics from that study are going to be shocking. They were to me, at least. It revealed that 1 in 5 girls and 1 in 20 boys are a victim of child sexual abuse. The self-report studies show that 20% of adult females and 5 to 10% of adult males recall a childhood sexual assault or sexual assault incident. And during a 1-year period in the United States, 16% of youth ages 14 to 17 had been sexually victimized. Over the course of their lifetime, 28% of United States youth ages 14 to 17 had been sexually victimized. Children are most vulnerable to child sexual assault between the ages of 7 and 13. According to a 2003 National Institute of Justice report, 3 out of 4 adolescents who have been sexually assaulted were victimized by someone they knew well. And a Bureau of Justice Statistics report shows that 1.6%, that's 16 out of 1,000 of children between the ages of 12 to 17 were victims of rape or sexual assault. A study conducted in 1986 found that 63% of women who had suffered sexual abuse by a family member also reported a rape or attempted rape after the age of 14. And recent studies in 2000, 2002, and 2005 have all concluded similar results. Children who had an experience of rape or attempted rape in their adolescent years were 13.7 times more likely to experience rape or attempted rape in their first year of college. A child who is the victim of prolonged sexual abuse usually develops low self-esteem, a feeling of worthlessness, and an abnormal or distorted view of sex. The child may become withdrawn and mistrustful of adults and can become suicidal. Children who do not live with both parents, as well as children living in homes marked by parental discord, divorce, or domestic violence, have a higher risk of being sexually abused. In the vast majority of cases where there is credible evidence that a child has been penetrated, only between 5 and 15% of those children will have genital injuries consistent with sexual abuse. Child sexual abuse is not solely restricted to physical contact. Such abuse could include non-contact abuse such as exposure, voyeurism, and child pornography. Compared to those with no history of sexual abuse, young males who were sexually abused were 5 times more likely to cause teen pregnancy, 3 times more likely to have multiple sexual partners, and 2 times more likely to have unprotected sex. And this is according to a study published online and in the June print issue of the Journal of Adolescent Health. My guest today is here to share her personal story on how she survived trauma. She is a guest, a speaker, a mentor, and an author. Latisha B. Russell is a recognized figure on the topic of child sexual abuse. Speaking from a platform of her own harrowing experiences, she has made it her mission to inspire children of sexual trauma by sharing her story of triumph through perseverance and resilience. I'm so very excited to have her here to share with you, my audience. She is a voice for the voiceless. Latisha considerately navigates the often raw sensibilities and effects of sexual abuse with fragile victims, their parents or guardians, and others who may need assistance in navigating this taboo, grim topic. After having experienced a Tish Talk, many walk away with renewed confidence and vigor, knowing that they too can overcome the shame, the story, just as she has done. Though a delicate subject matter, as I have already stated, child sexual abuse, trauma, and the exploitation, Latisha speaks from a cellular place. The heart, with each topic thoughtfully crafted. No matter the audience, her mission? To reconcile the trauma and to restore hope and relieve the stigma. She now employs her skill set to effectively coach and mentor young victims of sexual abuse and exploitation. Her seminal message, There Is Life After, to further solidify her commitment to child sexual abuse survivors. And you can read more in her memoir, The Naked Truth, From Pain to Triumph. I want you all to put some love in the chat and help me to welcome our guest, none other than Latisha B. Russell. Hi, Latisha.
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much for
Absolutely.
being here with me today.
It
I
has been
tell
a
you
long time
what,
coming.
just me giving all of those stats, and I felt like I needed to, just because, as you know, this topic of surviving trauma, and that's what we are going to be talking about on this episode,
Yeah.
it can be taboo.
Hmm.
It has been taboo to talk about, and it can be grim.
Yeah.
And I
Absolutely.
appreciate you so much being vulnerable and willing to share your own personal experience. And as I was sharing with the audience about your Tish Talks, which I just love that title that you've given your podcast, and talk to us about Tish Talks.
When when I started to really think through additional things that I could do to pour into people, right? Additional things that I could do so that other folks could hear that they're not alone, right? And that's what's most important. Tish Talks came up. And I kept saying, I don't want to do a podcast. I'm not really wanting to do that. I want it to be more of this open dialogue, right? But I recognize that that probably is a podcast. But Tish Talks, my goal is, full transparency, to launch that this month. But it's really a virtual dialogue where we can really discuss what's holding us back, right? And we'll have, guests that will appear that are relatable, guests that will really talk through how did they overcome and how did they move past their pain into that triumph, right? How did they heal and what did that look like? How are they now thriving individuals? And again, the real goal and purpose is so that others can hear and recognize that I'm not alone in this journey. And I think that's so important because you see this healed version and you're like, girl, you got your stuff together. But people don't see what it took you to really get
Mhm.
to that kind of the other side of that journey. So that is truly the intent behind Tish Talks.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I love the idea behind it. I am happy to know that it is in pre-launch, and the
Yes.
fact that you got to share with my audience what
Yes.
it is about. So those of you all who are presently watching, those of you who are watching the replay, once you hear everything that she's going to share and you would love to be one of her first guests
Yes.
on
Yes.
Tish Talks, later on, you know how I do it. When I do a call to action, you need to hurry up and get your name on her calendar for Tish Talks, because she's going to fill up and you
Yes.
want to be a part of that. Because I agree with you in terms of when we share with others, it is very cathartic. And
Yes.
it's all in the sharing and empowering others where our healing journeys do begin, and how we go through them, and how I
Yes.
don't know that a healing journey ever gets completed,
Yeah,
but it is how we do journey through to that
it
part.
is. It is.
As I was reading through those statistics and preparing for this episode with you, it was so hard for me. I
Yeah.
have a heart for children, and just reading the things that I was reading, and then reading your bio, and then venturing on your website, and just reading your experience, it was mind blowing. And I'll be just complete transparent. I had to take a moment.
Yeah.
I have worked with very closely with children for 3 decades, and I've seen some things.
Yeah.
And but I would like for you, as comfortable as you are with sharing, tell us about your story.
Yeah. So, as I was just hearing you read my bio, it does sound daunting, right? It's hard. It's really tough to hear. But when I tell you that while it is tough to hear, I am on the other side of that, right? And I'm going to talk about it, but it took forgiving myself first. And I always say now, and I try to live by this, that it's no longer my story, right? It is not. And so at the age of 7, I was sexually abused at the by the hands of my mom's second husband, and I never referred to him as my stepfather. I never have. I just don't. And my mom was married 3 times. So my biological father, it is 3 of us. We share the same mom, and she was a single mom. And so my biological father, the second husband, and then she's widowed, and so her last husband. And I have an older brother, and when she came and she said that she was getting remarried, mind you, I'm the youngest of the 3, right? And I didn't really know what to look for, right? What didn't feel good in terms of her saying she's remarrying. And I remember my oldest brother was just like, I'm not feeling him. Like, I can't put my finger on it, but I'm not feeling him. And he was very abusive to my mother. Matter of fact, both husbands, first and second, biological father and second, were abusive. And so I grew up in that environment my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was very abusive to her, then turned abusive physically to my brother. And during that course, he had begun sexually abusing me. I can remember, how most little girls do. They lay in bed with mommy, right? And so I would, normally it would happen when he would place me back in my bed. And it just happened over the course of several years. I never said anything. I was afraid to say anything. And the reason that I was afraid to say anything was because I felt like, what is she going to do? Is she going to leave him? What if she doesn't leave him? Now I've shared this, and now what do I do with this, right? And so I chose not to. I did, however, a few years later, confide in a friend of mine. And I remember her saying to me that you have to say something. And I was like, no, I'm afraid. Please don't tell. Like, I begged her, please don't say anything to my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And she never said anything. I
Mm-hmm.
did at some point. And finally, when I said something because I began to have seizures.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember like it was yesterday, the doctor saying, we can't find anything right now, but is there something that you're blocking out?
Mm.
And I was like, nope, I'm not. And I was forced to say something at that time. And my mom still didn't react in the manner that I needed her to react, right? When I think about me being a mom now,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I can't say right now what would happen, right? And
I
so
understand.
that's what I expected, I think. I just
Mm-hmm.
expected her to just lose her stuff like, what? And it did not happen that way. And
Oh,
so
wow.
that was my fear, right? But what I had to recognize, and it took me into my years to realize this, is she didn't know any different, right? She
Mm.
relied on a man her entire life.
Got you.
And so she didn't know what it felt like to know her. She didn't know what it felt like to love her and to truly protect her kids. Did that mean she didn't love us? Absolutely not,
Right.
right? You do the best that you can with the resources that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, my grandmother was a functioning alcoholic, her mom, which was also physically abusive to her. So that was all she knew.
Yes. All she knew.
And it took, when I talk about forgiving myself,
Mm-hmm.
oh, that was hard because I did. I secretly blamed me. I blamed her. And I allowed that to pace what I would do moving forward. I was that girl that grades weren't important. Grades weren't important to my mom. I would come home, I would change that D to a B. I tried my best, right? Grades, I was at best a C minus student. I just didn't care about grades.
Right.
And it wasn't until I was in grad school where, when I tell you I excelled, I was doing it. But I had to learn the importance of what I wanted my future to look like.
Mm-hmm.
I had to shift and pivot my mindset to, it can't be what it was as I was growing up.
Right.
And so nobody poured that into me. My mom she didn't know to instill those values, right? So I had to really figure it out by doing things that I'm not proud of, but I also don't regret them.
Right.
They were all learning experiences, right? Again, fully transparent. I became that promiscuous young lady dating much older men, right? 16, dating 30 something. I didn't know. But
Right.
my mom didn't ask, well, what are you doing?
No.
So I'm just going to figure this thing out called life myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so all things that I did was, it was a learning journey for me. I had to figure this thing out.
Mm-hmm.
And it really has molded me into the woman, the professional, the intelligent, the author that I am today, right? And I am now able to look at how I was raised and how I grew up
Mm-hmm.
into how I now raise my two little ones.
Mm-hmm. Right. That is wonderful.
Yeah.
And there's so many nuggets that I want to pick up.
Yeah. I know I talked a
And
whole lot.
so the ones that I'm going to grab,
Yeah.
I like in the beginning when you said that you used to say that it's your story, but you've moved on from it. So it's just like when we're reading a book, it's a chapter.
Yep.
It's a chapter
Absolutely.
in the book.
Yep.
And you read it and you progress on to the next chapter.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy to see how you have progressed, and just hearing you give that very quick synopsis of how things transform. I
Yeah.
want to, for those who are listening, and as you were sharing your story and they resonated, whether it be an adolescent
Yes.
or a young person who is presently experiencing it, whether it be the mom who's
Yeah.
like, I don't feel like something is right, or they just found out and they gave the reaction that you received from your mom.
Yeah.
Share with those who might be watching, or they might be the friend who just
Yeah.
got told and
Yes.
has been sworn to secrecy.
Mm.
Respond to those who fit that. Like, what would you say? And how old was the friend that you swore to secrecy?
Yeah, she was close to my age at the time, right?
So 7, 8.
No, mind you, years, right? This had been going on for years, so preteen.
Oh, wow. Okay. So we're talking about an adolescent that this just got told
Yes.
this and now has been sworn to secrecy.
Yes. Yes.
Is your best friend and cares so much about you.
Yeah.
So speak to those 3 different types that I just,
Yeah.
what would you share with them?
So I'm going to break it down. So if I'm speaking to that mom who has that child, and you are wondering, how do I know, right? What do I say to them? Let me tell you, because there are parents that I personally coach, and they blame themselves because they feel as if, well, I should have protected them. Stop blaming yourself, right? I say again, parenting doesn't come with a book, right? So you figure it out as you go along. You protect them as much as you can, right? You love on them. But what I will say to you is ask questions. I am guilty of having this phone with me. Most places I go, right? I'm guilty of it. But what I ensure that I do is ask questions, even questions that might make me feel uncomfortable. I grew up in a household where I couldn't ask why. It was because I said so. I allow my 5 and 7-year-old to ask me why, mommy, because I want to explain to you what I am saying and why I'm saying it, so that you know not to do whatever that it is, right? So I encourage you to get comfortable with being uncomfortable and asking those questions. I encourage you with being in the moment with your kids. And, I still walk in my kids' rooms and kiss on them at night, right? Sometimes I'll even wake my 5-year-old up and I'm like, why did I just wake her up, right? Because I know she's going to go back to sleep at this age.
Yes.
Just to love on them, and I whisper to them, I love you. And God forbid, I pray nothing happens, but I know that I'm always present. That's what's most important. Now, if I'm speaking to, that friend that was sworn to secrecy, I'm going to say to you, say to that friend, right? That's a big ask of me.
Yes.
I love you, but I think we need to share with someone. So let's just talk about this, right? And at that age, you don't really know what to say, how to say, where to go with it or anything. But at that point, I would just say, I still love you and I appreciate you telling me, but I think we need to tell somebody, right?
Yes.
Even if it's not your parent, who can
Yes.
I tell? Can I tell a counselor?
Yeah.
Who can I tell? Who do you trust? Let's talk about that. And chances are, if it's a good friend that they've sworn that to secrecy, that friend knows who other friends are, right? That friend knows other people, and they know and can begin to name off names of, okay, do you trust such and such? Can I
Mm-hmm.
share this with such and such? Somebody that
Mm-hmm.
has their best interest, right? Um, but just again, making sure that you're present and knowing the signs is difficult, but just making sure that you're asking those questions.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love that. And I love that advice that you gave.
Yeah,
Stop blaming yourself.
you
And
have to.
as a friend, just saying, I love you. Who do you feel comfortable with telling?
Yeah.
What do you say to the 7-year-old who
Mm,
is blaming, or the actual person that it's happening to,
yeah.
and they're blaming themselves
Hmm.
for it happening?
Yeah. That if I had to go back and say, what would I tell my 7-year-old self? It's not your fault, right? I love you. We're going to get past this. What's on the other side of this journey, this healing, this heartache, this pain? I
Mm-hmm.
would say something, if it's see something, say something, right? No matter how uncomfortable it is, right? Say no, yell, whatever the case is. Because I used to
Mm-hmm.
blame myself in that because I didn't say stop, that was my fault. And
Mm.
it was not. But again, it took so very long for me to speak out about that because I was afraid of that. Society is brutal.
It's
Right? So
brutal.
it's brutal. And
Brutal.
so just telling that 7-year-old me that I love you, right? No matter
Mm-hmm.
what. And we're going to get through this no
Mm-hmm.
matter what. And healing looks different for everybody, for each individual person. And so
Yes.
don't allow people to say to you, kind of moving forward, that happened so long ago. You should be over it, right? How do you
Oh.
feel that way? And yeah, no.
Oh no.
Yeah.
And that's a very good segue
Mm,
into this next one, because as you
yeah.
readily admitted in the beginning, when people are looking at our present,
Yeah.
they tend to kind of forget there
Yes.
was a journey, there was a
Mhm.
process. Share with the audience in terms of the process, and it's not to take anything away from it, but what were some steps in
Yeah.
terms of that journey that you took?
I had to ask myself who I wanted to become on the other side of this pain, was one very big question. Who do I want to become? I had to master me and get to know me. See, I was chasing other people, other men at some point in my life. I was chasing them and wanting them to love me. And I always say I was expecting somebody to love me beyond the capacity in which they were capable of loving me. But it wasn't them. I had to master loving me first. And so that was
Mm,
really part of the journey. It was being okay with sharing my story and also being okay with knowing that I cannot take everybody along this ride with me. And I'm a firm
mm,
believer of reason, season, lifetime. Some people are in your life for a reason, season, and a lifetime. And you got to be okay when that season is up, right? And I lost some folks. I had some folks that were like, oh, why did you decide to? Because it's not about you, right? It's not about you. And Christina, I'm going to tell you the hardest part was when I sat down with my mom, and I remember I was intentional about this. She had come, she hadn't moved to Georgia yet. She had come to visit me. And I was like, how am I going to tell her that I am writing this book and I am getting ready to share? Because I am connected to people that we had grown up in church with. Church family. And I was connected to them on Facebook, right? We all know everybody's on social media. So I was like,
yes.
let me share with her, right? I'm 45. I had to think about it. I'm 45 today. And 2019 is really when end of 2018 when I started this. And so I was taking her to the airport. I I decided to wait until I was taking her to the airport.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
so I was taking her to the airport and I said, Ma, I just want to let you know that I am writing a book and it's entitled The Naked Truth. And it really tells my story of trauma, right? Sexual abuse, depression, suicide. It lays it all out. And I'm letting you know because we have some of the same connections and they will probably reach out. And so I want to give you the courtesy. And the adult in me, but still the kid in me, wanted her to say, oh my God, just talk to me. Tell me, what made you decide to do this? I'm going to support you. But instead, she said, that's what you want to do. I was crushed. I was. And I had to sit in that for a moment.
Yeah.
I did. And I still told myself, she's embarrassed.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't know.
No.
She has absolutely no idea how to respond to this. And so I said, it is what I want to do. And I said, whether you're uncomfortable or whether everybody else that reads my story is uncomfortable, I've been uncomfortable for several years. So you all will have to just sit in it and be okay with it. I was absolutely okay with that. A couple of years later, she read part of the book. I don't think she's ever finished it, but I
Mm-hmm.
remember walking into either she had come over here or something, but walking in and she said, "Can I have a hug? I didn't know you had gone through all of that." Christina, at 33, I was sitting on the floor in my living room with a suicide note written with a gun in hand, right? She didn't know any of that because her and I are close. Nobody knows. I can remember my oldest brother saying, I love my sister, but I don't know her. I'm an introvert. I don't share what I go through. I bottle that up because, again, so many people judge you and
Yes.
they look at you and they think that, just vulnerability and strength cannot reside in the same place. But I'm here to tell you it can, because I can cry, but now let's get this meeting started.
Right.
It's okay, right?
Right.
I
Right.
can voice and show my emotion. That doesn't mean I'm not capable.
No.
And so that's only part of the journey. But I'm here today and I enjoy it, right? I enjoy speaking about it. I enjoy coaching, moms about this. And I enjoy even talking to, my little ones about it. And I can admit I'm still nervous when my 7-year-old came home and she said, Mommy, this is what we talked about in school. And I was like, it's 7? Are
Yeah.
y'all talking about stranger danger type of thing? Like it's 7?
Yeah.
But again, that was the age that
Yes.
that it started, right? And
Yes.
so I do look at her and that's the reason I still go in their rooms and love on them, because I'm like, I was 7.
Yep. Yes. Wow. That is so incredible. And I just all the questions and the thoughts that go through my mind, and hearing you say that your 7-year-old's coming home and sharing, on the one hand, as a mom, you do
Yeah.
get that gasp, like, oh wow, you all are talking about this in school. But then
Yeah.
I'm sure on the other side, you're like, I'm glad that they're talking about this
Yes.
because of the awareness. And as
Yes.
you stated, it helps to remove that stigmatism, that
It
tabooness.
does.
Because if it's talked about, then there's not this shame put upon it. And it's kind of like what you're
Absolutely.
saying, like as we were growing up, there was so much shame and so much what goes on in this house stays in this house. And
Yes.
that's
Yes.
how those are breeding grounds, those types of wording, that type of dialogue
Yes.
that creates unaware that
Yes.
creates a breeding ground
Yeah.
for this type of trauma to happen.
Yep.
Now, notice what I'm saying. The individual who carries out these acts are completely and 100% responsible
Absolutely.
for what they do.
Yep.
They are.
Absolutely.
We have to be careful that we don't make them comfortable in being able to
Absolutely.
do. They have to be made very uncomfortable. And I can assure you that an individual who is desirous of doing this to children, if they will not select a child who they know that is going to tell everything,
Yes.
they are not going to select a child or do it in a family environment where there is open dialogue about it,
Absolutely.
because there's the roof has been opened.
Yes.
They want
Right.
that secrecy. They want people where it has been told what goes on in this house stays in this house,
Absolutely.
or we don't talk about that, or when adults are talking, you go into another room, or when it comes to their bodies, they're being
Yes.
made to feel ashamed of it, as opposed to explaining, or don't ask why. It's not in the question of the why, but it's in the tone or in the
Mhm.
context and what it's being told. So I
Absolutely.
appreciate you sharing so much about your journey. Tell us about your healing, because
Mhm.
you radiate beauty. You
Thank you.
radiate confidence. And as you say, you can't judge a book by its cover. We would never know have you not shared your story.
Yeah.
No one would ever know. In fact, we don't ever know what goes on behind someone's,
We don't. We
facade.
don't.
And
Yeah.
so you are a mom, you are married,
Yeah.
having gone through what you went through, and to be this person who is now able to coach others, to
Yeah.
speak about it, and to write about it. There was a whole healing that
It
came with that,
was
an
a whole
entire healing.
a whole healing.
Tell us about this whole healing.
I don't think I did what most or many would have done, and that is gone through the counseling process and finished it. That was the toughest part for me, if I'm being honest, because I was just at that moment, I was like, I don't want to sit in this chair and have them ask me, so what's next? So tell me how you feel.
Like, I don't know. That's why I'm here. What's
Right,
next?
exactly.
You tell me. That's what you get paid for.
Exactly.
That's the day I don't have it in me, ma'am.
That's
sir.
what I was looking for. That's
Yes.
right. And I was just like, yeah, let me go find somebody else. And so after a few of them, I was like, so clearly this is just what happens, and I'm just not going to do it. Right. And so I had to sit in that me time. I had to sit in it by myself. I had to love me by myself. I had to date me. And so when I tell you I would hop on the plane sometimes, I ain't know a soul in various parts of other states, cities, and I would go get a hotel and enjoy myself. I didn't have to worry about being in toxic relationships. Like I did me, right? And that was part of my healing.
I love it.
I did things that I could not do as a child, right? I would travel and I would just go and have fun and go and sit and have a drink or go and sit and have lunch. And that was really part of my healing. And so I had to just be okay with crying out loud and yelling and just being okay in that space and knowing how to love me before I can truly love somebody else. And as I got through that space, then I said, I now want to become the person that I was.
Oh, I think we've had some technical difficulties. Hold on here. Let's see. See if it's going to reconnect us in just a moment. Hold on.
Latisha B also joined.
Hey, that's what happens with technology. When you're live, anything and everything goes, right?
It
We're
is.
just going to do that again. But you had me at a good part when you were talking about you were flying and dating yourself and doing all of the things that you wanted to do. And you would just go somewhere sometimes and just scream and just be with yourself. So take it up from there, girl.
Absolutely. At least when you froze, it was a beautiful freeze. Like it was just, you were just there. Most people, it's like mouth is open and it's like, oh my goodness, did I just freeze at that point?
Yours was too. So it was just like, hey, we can't control when it's live. So let's just don't even worry about it. We're going to keep it rolling. We're going to keep this train moving. One lucky swan, no show. Come on now.
So, what I was saying is that is truly what my healing was. And when I began to really come out on the other side of it, I vowed to be that person that I was looking for and that I was missing in a coach or therapist when I was in the midst of that storm, right? Because I knew what I was looking for. And I was like, I can't find it. And so for me, when I began coaching, that is what I vowed to do, was just truly be that person and take it from a different approach and lens.
Oh, that is so wonderful.
Yeah.
I tell you what, Latisha, we could go on and on and on, and I would love to have you back because you are full of nuggets, not just only on this subject, but I know that there's more inside of you. Here's what I would like to do. I do a call to action
Yeah.
because I know for those who are listening and those who are watching the replay that they are going to want to get in touch with you, because I'm pretty sure that they have been hitting the share button throughout this conversation. And I appreciate my listeners. They are just so wonderful. And my viewers, I appreciate you all so much. I'm going to share with them how they can get in touch with you. And again, you all, if you don't have anything to write with, don't worry. It's going to be in the show notes and you can get it from there. But she's made it easy for you. You can find her on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Latisha B. Russell. You can make sure. I was going to ask you this in terms of your memoir, The Naked Truth from Pain to Triumph. Is that in Kindle format only, or can they get a hard book? Tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. You can absolutely get a hard book. So latishabrussell.com/shop. You can grab, you can get your hard copy that way. And if you forget the /shop, no problem. You can be directed just going to latishabrussell.com. So for those of you that prefer, those of you that prefer the hardback, go ahead and order via my website.
Very good. So you can get it in Kindle format.
Yes.
You can download it, have it on your phone or on whatever device you like to read from. Some people still like to hold that book in their hands. I'm like that too. I really just have too many books, and I got to the point where I told myself I wasn't going to order any more books, but now my digital one is just as full. So, I don't know what we're going to do with this. I just love to read. So you all, this is her website. Again, it's going to be in the show notes. And I would like for you all to also use her website to schedule your clarity call.
Yes.
It is a free, no obligation, because she has just uncovered some things here where you might just want to have a conversation with her and just say, I know you're not a therapist, because we as coaches, that's not what we do.
Right.
I just don't even know where to begin to even look for one. Like, what do I do? I suspect this is going on, or this is happening with me, or I'm that BFF that was just laid that weight on. Yeah. And I don't really know. Or I'm the mom who had the reaction that your mom did.
Yeah.
And I need to repair the relationship with my daughter.
Yes.
This is where you reach out. And remember the Tish Talk? The Tish Talk is going to be kicking off. And you don't want her slots to fill up. So you need to go onto her website, and you need to get scheduled to be a guest on Tish Talks so that you can start sharing, because it is through the sharing. Remember those statistics that I put out in the very beginning about that they really don't know, which that is very frightful, because the statistics that I read are frightful enough. But I shudder to think that those numbers can even be higher if more were reported.
Yeah.
It is our goal to remove the shame and the stigmatism, the negative stigmatism and the tabooness off of child sexual abuse, because we are not going to make it so that the predators have a comfortable environment to keep preying on our children. Absolutely. We're just not. Absolutely. And so having these conversations with Latisha by scheduling your clarity call and by doing Tish Talks is what's going to help do that. And you can be a part of this conversation with her on her podcast. I appreciate you so much, but before you get out of here, it's not over. I do this final thoughts with all of my guests. And you know me, being a mindset coach, I'm going to ask you to share a final thought here with our guests as it relates to mindset shift. What is the one mindset shift that you would like to leave with the viewing and listening audience when it comes to surviving trauma and child sexual abuse?
I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to give you two.
Knock it out.
Sit in your forgiveness for freedom. And so if you are struggling with forgiving you, right? If you are blaming you got to sit in it in order to feel free. And so I want to make sure I leave you with that. The other thing is dream big, right? Each dream has a cycle. So be ready to pivot so that you are ready to dream big. And so sometimes, we don't allow ourselves to do that. And so I challenge you to make sure that you're doing that.
I absolutely love it. You knocked it out of the park. Didn't think anything less than I would get that from you. I so appreciate you, and thank you
Absolutely.
so much for being my guest and just adding extra richness to this conversation.
Yeah.
Something that could have ended up being extremely heavy, it was not.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you sharing your wonderful story with us.
Thank you.
And I'm going to say goodbye to my audience, and I'll be right back with you.
Thank you.
And there you have it. And just like that, another episode of Conversations with Coach. And I hope that you all have gotten something and a good takeaway from this. I know that I have. Surviving trauma can be very difficult. And if you yourself have experienced the childhood sexual abuse, or someone in your family or someone that you know, and you have identified with the conversation that just took place between myself and Latisha, definitely do reach out to her. I appreciate you all so much. You can also share this conversation with those that you know by following me on my Instagram, my Facebook, join me over on LinkedIn and on my YouTube channel, and just reshare it over and over again. Our goal is to remove that stigmatism, the negative stigmatism off of it, and just create a space where the predators just feel uncomfortable because they know that the children are going to be empowered to use their voices. You can also reach me on my website to schedule your clarity call when it comes to getting your mindset and confidence to the level that you want it to be so that you can reach your goals. I appreciate you so very much, and I'm looking forward to you joining me on the next episode of Conversations with Coach.
Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Coach. Please be sure to follow Coach Christina on all of her social media platforms. And remember, life is only as good as your mindset.